Welcome to the last Leaders Link conversation of 2020. And what a year has it been. I think we're all kind of crawling to the finishing line of this particular year. We've had an extraordinary set of conversations with amazing leaders from around the world over the last 9 or so months since April. And I'm really delighted that we're going to end on a very special note with a conversation with a dear friend and awesome leader, Ali Abu Awwad. Ali, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here with us, dialing in from the West Bank in Palestine. I'm just going to sort of set the scene a little bit and share with you. I've spent a lot of time visiting Ali and seeing his work on the ground with an incredible network of peacemakers. He's a person with his own extraordinary story, and we'll hear a little bit about that in a moment. He's spent the last many years building peace movements on the ground. Most recently, Taghyeer, which means change, the Palestinian Nonviolence Movement. And we're going to hear more about that now. So Ali, a big welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you everybody for being here. I can see faces from all across the world, lots of different folks, some who've met you in the past, others meeting you for the first time. So thrilled to have people from across the globe with us. And let me just start by asking you to tell us a bit about Taghyeer, the mission of your organization and what you do.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thanks to your great team and organization Leaders Quest as a strategic and a great partner. And thank you everyone for joining us today and giving me personally this opportunity to share with you what we have been doing since the last 4 years, because Taghyeer, which means change, is the Palestinian Nonviolence National Movement that was just a dream mostly 4 years ago. And today, I can proudly different groups and has succeeded to engage in community leaders all over West Bank, who's leading the movement, a core team, and we have managed to serve the community even in crises such as coronavirus. Taghyeer mission is to establish a massive national nonviolence movement on the ground that will allow Palestinians to adopt nonviolence as an identity. And this identity will introduce the Palestinian cause to themselves first, to the Israeli society, to develop our society and take responsibility. Because peace actions and peace activism should not be based just in joint actions between Israelis and Palestinians. We deeply believe in Taghyeer that every society in Israel and Palestine has a tremendous responsibility to adopt nonviolence and to establish and to prepare the ground for any future peace agreement. So our mission mostly is to create this environment where solutions are possible, where people start giving up their victimhood actions and identity and start believing in that they have survived crises and events in the history or daily, but they also are leaders for change and they are messengers of change. And our great project of messengers of change is based on that. So we managed to engage around 32 community top leaders who are doing social activism or even political activism to adopt this nonviolence, and we consider them as solution makers and agents for change. Their mission is to carry Taghyeer philosophy and introduce Taghyeer as a movement to the society and prepare any programs on the ground and prepare the community to host Taghyeer as partner, not as a savior. We are not saving anyone. We are partnering with our own people, hoping that everyone will start believing on her or on himself first, where solution start. On the other hand, we are hoping to recruit around 70 to 100 community leaders in the future. We are working in that with the best training such as a German organization who gives a great training to these activists, especially with women. Our women leaders just finished their program of 1 year training in women leadership. We don't believe in women, in Palestinian women empowerment, because we believe that Palestinian women are super powerful, but they have to be respected. This is what we believe in. And we don't teach women about their rights. I promise you, our women knows their rights, but we educate men about women's rights, and this gives women a space to act and take their role because they are controlled by men. And our charter as an identity for the movement has been just finalized. We established a Palestinian Nonviolence Charter to introduce Taghyeer philosophy to the whole world and to the Palestinian. We partner now with 19 local organizations in Palestine who sign on the charter, and we are hoping we have around 28 organizations in the process of signing that charter. This charter describes the principles, the vision, the philosophy of Taghyeer.
So just to give people context, especially if those of you who haven't spent time in the region, it's quite extraordinary work to be reaching out to a diverse community across the West Bank and engaging people in this idea of non-violence, of really leading with one's values, and asking people to step up in a very personal, committed way. And part of the ethos of Taghyeer is to do that through leaders, through female leaders, through other leaders, but also through a network of organizations. And I'm just going to read you a little bit from the charter that Ali's referring to. So we, the Palestinian National Nonviolent Movement, Taghyeer, with our Palestinian partners from all walks of life and across the world, with all people who believe in human dignity, stand united in the quest for our rights and freedom. Our collective decision is to devote all our efforts to change our present reality by adopting non-violence as a unifying identity for our people. I just want to ask you, Ali, how do people respond to this idea of non-violence as a core identity? And indeed, how much pushback do you get? Because clearly you're operating in a very sensitive political environment.
You know, Lindsay and everyone, Palestinian has tried everything to achieve their goal of freedom. Nothing works. On the other hand, Palestinian has been always relied on others, honestly speaking, other political forces around the world, or the Israeli next president, as we are relied now to the American next president, that we will talk soon, or the Arab. Palestinian has to take the lead for their future. And I think nonviolence will even introduce the Palestinian cause in a just way to the international community. We have to be just to ourselves first. If we demand justice, if we seek for justice, we have to be just for ourselves, not just for our enemies. Justice for Palestinian means to adopt broadly nonviolence as a savior to their cause, to their legitimate right. On the other hand, we cannot be relied on others always. Nonviolence educates us that we are leaders. Everyone will feel a leader to make a difference. Palestinian needs to trust themselves. Palestinians are struggling definitely from the occupation, but also they are struggling from lack of leadership. We have politicians, but I'm not sure we have leaders, because politicians are managers of this reality and this conflict. But leaders are managers for a just and safe and a peaceful vision for the nation. So we don't tell people what they like to hear. Sometimes, yes, we do have challenges. We do have big challenges. I don't hold a secret if I say some of us were supposed to be arrested. Even one of us was arrested. Our community organizer was arrested by the Palestinian Authority. There was also a misunderstanding and mismanagement for the security forces on the ground. Palestinians feel lost. And for the big despair that Palestinians are facing today is a great resource for change. On the other hand, I believe with the good intention of the Israeli left camp, people who really want justice for Palestine or solution for the conflict, I think Israelis are having mostly emotional transformation toward the Palestinian right. But emotional transformation is not enough for Palestinians to survive and end the occupation. I think they need social, political, massive transformation, different kind of projects on the ground that people will believe on different conditions of life. Because we me personally, spent years working with Israelis in peace building, which I'm proud of, honestly. I'm really proud of. But this process, I mean, the joint process, in my opinion, in part of it, has failed to change the political reality. So if we want to help the Israeli peace camp, then we need to stand up as Palestinian peace movement on the ground to say that any drop of blood for anyone should not be spoiled, and any hurt of any human being on this land, it doesn't matter where he come from or where she come from, should consider as a crime. We have to say this proudly. We have to able even the world to trust us as Palestinians that we are able to manage and lead ourselves. Number two, we should not be a political resource for any political force in the Middle East, using the Palestinian cause, promoting anti-Semitic speeches and hate behaviors. We are free enough to deserve freedom. This is the main message of Taghyeer. We are educated enough to be partners with Israel in a normal future, not a future that will control the dream of our kids and the next generation, dreams. So here, and people, are afraid from normalization. This issue of normalization. How dare you to normalize the relation with Israel during the occupation? The occupation should end first, then you should normalize the relation. In my opinion, individuals cannot have normalization because we are not representatives of the Palestinian people. We are the people themselves. We don't speak in behalf of our people. On the other hand, we have to turn our society to become normal in our behaviors, in self-responsibility, in women's rights, in youth rights, all of these values of a healthy society. The minute we turn ourselves to our people first, before we turn our back to our enemies or our face to our enemies, we have to turn our energy to our people. Then the Palestinian people will be able to sign a peace agreement. And then this occupation will be shame on the Israeli political system if the Palestinians adopt and use their humanity enough for their cause.
So Ali, what you're describing is that in a situation like this, a conflict like this, each society has to transform itself rather than worrying about transforming the other. This long, hard work of changing ourselves and changing our communities and changing our societies, which is, I think, an incredibly powerful idea and actually central to how human beings grow and how we develop as communities. People, I think, would appreciate understanding a little bit about you. How did you come, in short, give us a sense of your own personal journey and what's brought you to seeing the world this way and stepping up as a leader in this way?
Yeah, as you just said, when you transform yourself, it's automatically transform others. The work has to be done on yourself. My first experience as a political young activist who was born to a political great mother who was a leader of the first intifada and was very close to Arafat himself. My mother was jailed different times and spent years in the Israeli prison for resisting the occupation. And when I joined the first Intifada, I thought this is my identity. I have to throw stones as much as I can on these soldiers and just to get rid of them from my land. That was all in my heart, in my mind. And actually, when I was to prison, in the same time with my mother and requesting and asking Israel to take me to visit my mother to her other prison, and Israel always has refused for 3 years, then we decide to go for a hunger strike to see each other. And that 17 days of starving has transformed me totally. It's not just I achieved to see her, I did achieve that goal, but for the first time, I was looking back to myself. I always looked to the soldiers, to the occupation, to the enemy. That was my biggest mirror to see a tremendous force in my heart to achieve my rights that I was blind to, which was my humanity. So that was my first lesson in nonviolence. Then I start reading about nonviolence. Then also peace agreement has been, peace initiative has been signed. Then I was released as part of that with other prisoners. Then in 2000, after Oslo peace process has failed, 2000 again, I faced a great exam. Shall I go back to fight, or shall I adopt and secure the peace agreement that has failed already and didn't secure Palestinian freedom and independence? And I was stuck between both things until in 2000, I was badly shot by a settler, Israeli settler in the West Bank. And while I was in the hospital, I received the news that my 32 years old brother, Yusuf, was stopped and very violently killed by Israeli soldiers. Then again, you have all the resources to go to revenge and violence. But then what shall I do with the transformation that I had in my heart and in my mind? Where shall I carry this story? How can I continue breathing? How can I think about any normal future? Then if you just want justice and a normal future, so your reaction should be normal, not abnormal, because you cannot achieve justice by killing someone. I don't believe on that. I can easily, and I could easily kill an Israeli as a revenge. But then you ask yourself a question: what I'm adding to this conflict again? What is my role here? Then I'm not a saint, I'm not, an angel, I'm just an ordinary human being who waked up and saw that in his heart there is something that is much powerful as a revenge than killing, which is reconciliation. And I cannot say that I reconciled totally. I know that reconciliation needs values. I joined the Parent Circle Families Forum as my first station first organization that I joined. Then I left after few years because I wanted to go for something bigger. Then I established a crazy initiative between Palestinian and settlers called Roots, where it was like madness, because Palestinian and settlers should not talk at all, and that was a crazy step. Then I realized that the key is not with good lefties from Tel Aviv or nice Jewish person in New York. No, the key is in every village in Palestine, in every refugee camp, in every city. The key is in the Palestinian street. It's in our hand. Ending the occupation is an Israeli political decision, but forcing or encouraging or whatever doing to Israel to take that decision, there is a lot of a hell of work that has to be done within the Palestinian society for that. And today, Taghyeer has become my life. I'm working on a manifesto of 100 tough questions in the conflict trying to answer them as a solution maker. I also finished writing my book in Arabic. I call it Painful Hope, because to have hope in this land is such a painful issue. And today, Taghyeer has different projects of non-violence development, start from building a guest house funded by Rawabi, Bashar al-Masri, one of the most amazing modern cities in the Middle East, that has been built by this Palestinian businessman who's supporting Taghyeer now to build a guest house in South Hebron Hills, or having the women of Nablus coming to the street to educate people about the effect of Corona and start to defend the society, or planning now to have greenhouses for Palestinians to respond to the annexation. And instead of coming with political statements, we say, let's go to the area, say, to this land and start developing it as a best way to support our community, but also as a response to this tough, unjust political decision by Israel. So this is where I am today.
Thank you, Ali, very much. Before I ask you a couple more questions and then open up for questions from the audience, I just want to offer, we've got a number of friends of Taghyeer on the phone, people who've been amazing supporters and seen the work on the ground. And I wonder, Mera and Stephen, would you each like to just share in a couple of sentences what it is that's really motivated you about working and supporting with Taghyeer? Mera, I see you there. Do you want to come off mute and share a thought with us?
I think my husband, who is also co-founder of my organization, Beit of Hope, and directly involved with Taghyeer, he's on this call.
Okay.
I'd rather have him say it because he's working so closely with Taghyeer.
Cool. David, are you there? Go for it.
Yeah, so thanks, Lindsay. What impresses me the most with regards to Taghyeer is the fact that they are, on the one hand, completely community-based, and on the other hand, Palestinian-wide. And what I find, and the way that they do this is that they spend their time training leaders, giving them tools to understand their vision of nonviolent identity, and then they ask the local leaders to come up with their own initiatives, which they then share across all of the network to allow those initiatives to happen. And I find that that's a beautiful approach, because on the one hand, it makes real positive, concrete change occur, and on the other, it bands people together for some larger national nonviolent identity.
Wonderful, thank you. Stephen, and then Saskia, I see you there. It would be lovely to hear a little bit from you about the work with some of the women in Palestine. Stephen, do you want to just share a thought?
So reaching out from communities in the States 9 years ago, talking to Ali on the ground and seeing with him and a couple of the brilliant community organizers, the notion of going around and starting in marginalized communities, a grassroots movement, and this dawning realization that though the face-to-face peace-building measures with Israelis and Jews could often lead to beautiful personal transformations, it was Palestinians self-developing themselves, transforming themselves on the ground, leadership to the most unexpected elements, to see that start to grow in patchworks and fragments and begin to coalesce, and to have the ability to support from the United States and go over and work with these beautiful people on the ground. It's been especially astonishing and wonderful to me to see this old boys network of men who've been in prison together understand, embrace the women's leadership that has come to the fore in villages and cities across Palestine, and we're trying to keep it moving and growing.
Thank you, Stephen. And speaking of female leadership, Saskia, you've led fabulous workshops with women. Why don't you speak a bit? Yeah.
Wonderful to speak to all of you. It's been a great honor for me to run photo workshops for leaders, women leaders that Ali and Stephen just mentioned, for 3 years in a row. Last year, the year before So 2019, 2020 was obviously not a possibility because of COVID. I worked with the women that Ali just mentioned in Nablus. And just seeing the power that came out of these women, the ideas they had, what they wanted to achieve in Nablus, make the changes that were necessary, you know, from cleaning parks to creating buildings that could become community buildings, were just amazing. And photography really allowed these women, you know, to show us what needed to be changed. So Nablus was by far, and I'll just shout out to Bruce, who was with me for the workshop and took some amazing photos of these women. I'm so sorry I can't be back on the ground, but I'm so happy to hear that those women in Nablus are working to change things now with COVID. So just, they remain so active day in, day out, and hoping for more workshops soon.
Fabulous. Ali, if you come back off mute, and folks, do be thinking about questions. I'm going to pass to questions in a moment. Just before I do that, we've got you back on screen, Ali. Let's hope the internet holds out. You know, one of the many qualities you have that I really admire is exceptional resilience. And I think this year, those of us in easier parts of the world are coming to appreciate resilience much more perhaps than we did before. I know one of the things you wanted to comment on is the US election. As somebody sitting in Palestine, share with us a couple of thoughts as you've watched what's unfolded here in the US.
Definitely, and let me again welcome all of our partners. I feel so strong having all of these partners with us today. And one of the most amazing things, you know, one of my great messages that I believe in, advising people not to take sides, but to be pro-solution. And these guys over there has decided to become pro-solution by supporting Taghyeer. And without them, honestly, we couldn't manage to achieve what we have achieved today, including yourself, Lindsay. And I think the American people for the last few years, maybe even many years, has invested, I mean, the American governments, different governments, has invested so much outside America that comes on the expense of the American people inside. And with all the interior problems of the United States of America and the people of America, I think recently you have transformed us, honestly, American people, to stand non-violently in this election and take a political decision toward other nations and toward yourself, which is also our responsibility, hoping that the new president will really play effective role. But as I always believe that no one will be able to help us if we are not able to help ourselves. I promise you, and I have this commitment to continue in Taghyeer, to allow the American government, whomever is the president, not to ignore our situation. We are hoping that you, American people, or whomever lives in America, will be more involved in this conflict, will be more involved in the American politics that affect our life. As we didn't allow other forces to use us as Palestinian, we want you to take a serious role within our society as, you know, grassroots initiatives, or in the top politics for that role. This is my big hope, and we will be ready to partner with you. It's more than your money. We need your money definitely, but we need you as partners. We need resources, we need organizations, we need training. We need to work with the environment. There is a lot that women can do with environment here, not just men. We need any kind of like Saskia. She came with her camera and she even managed to get us more than 20 cameras and have these year after year. This amazing training for women to express themselves through their photos that they take in their life, including Bruce working with these kids in Karama Center that I established, and teaching them to see themselves through their eyes, not to be depending on others. How do they feel sorry about them? We don't want you to feel sorry about us, because humanity is not to feel sorry about someone. Humanity is to be able to make a difference that will affect someone's life. This is what we need. And I think with the normalization decisions by some of the Arab countries now, Palestinian society is so upset, not because we don't want Israel to normalize its relation with the Arabs. Personally, I do want Israel to normalize its relation, but it should not be on the price of the Palestinian peace, in the Palestinian freedom. We want to be part of this normalization process. We don't want to be thrown out of this circle that could recruit everyone to have a normal Middle East. And I think the United States of America can play a very important role there also, because we don't want our people to lose their hope.
We've just got time for a question. John Greenwald, I see you've got your hand up. Please come off mute and share your question. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Ali, it's good to see you, even if only visually or virtually. But when you were in Washington in the early part of the year, just before the COVID lockdowns, you mentioned the idea of cooperating with and receiving help from Bashar al-Masri and Rawabi to create the first non-violent academy in Palestine. I wondered whether that process has gone forward or not. It seemed very promising when you described it in the outlines.
Yes, that was one of my crazy ideas, to create the first Palestinian nonviolence academy in the Middle East. And when we introduced the idea to Bashar al-Masri, he said, consider me in. But with my sorrow, as you know, just after we came back from the US, we faced the Corona crisis. So we were not able to push this forward. I deeply hope, since we are ready on the ground, Bashar al-Masri with Rawabi City are ready even to be the host of that college. I'm hoping in the future that we will push this forward, and we welcome any effort for that.
We've got time for just one more question. I'm sorry, time is pressing, everybody, but Howard Sumka, lovely to see you. Good to see you again. I see you've got a raised hand. Please come off mute and ask your question.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. It's great to see you. A lot of pieces of my life have come together on this Zoom screen. Ali, it's great to hear you, and I'm really happy to hear your book's coming. I'm waiting for the English translation. Your book and Alana's will come out maybe at the same time. What I wanted to ask about is, with things going so badly in the broader sense for the Palestinians, in particular the marginalization that seems to have been happening internationally, the steps that the Israeli government has been taking to essentially further entrench the occupation, to talk about annexation and so on. How do the people who participate in Tahrir respond to this? I mean, what kinds of specific actions have you taken against these steps, or have you taken none? Is there room for kind of a mass non-violent response to some of these things that have been so detrimental to Palestinian rights and everyday life?
Thank you, Howard. It's always great to see you. And I have to say, you was an American politician who also changed my mind about America many years ago when you was the head of the USAID here. I'm so proud to get to know you, and so proud to have a conversation with you, because your question comes from knowledge. Honestly speaking, we have learned in Taghyeer a big lesson of not being dependent on other political decisions, especially from Israel, and not to be led by these actions. On the other hand, instead of facing it with statements, as I mentioned, like the annexation, we have decided to invest on the ground on Area C, empower farmers and our volunteers in agriculture projects that will help to defend the land, but also to give a political response to what is planned as annexation. On the other hand, we are thinking deeply because this is tough. You know, the Palestinian political situation is not the best, as you know, I'm sure. But now we are focusing in changing the culture of thinking, which means that we need a new political structure and we need a new political speech that has to come from Palestine first. I personally published something and I wrote to Mahmoud Abbas as the president. I told him after Trump released his plan, I told him, this is your time now to come up with the Palestinian peace initiative for the first time. Because we always speak about the Saudi peace initiative, Camp David, the Arab peace initiative, these peace initiative. This is the time for us to save our cause, to come up and tell the world what we want. But on the other hand, as a massive movement, as a grassroots movement, our mission is not just to keep our people hope, but also keep engaging them to think what could be really effective. Yes, we are planning now for a massive action. Our first massive event was with 4,000 people in Jericho 4 years ago. But now we need massive different actions in different communities. And I can say, I hope that my leaders will allow me to say that we start planning a massive activity with 2,000 to 3,000 Palestinians with a message and invitation for solution, not criticism for what we face. This maybe will crack the wall of the silence that we are facing in the Palestinian and the despair. Hopefully, one day we will, and this is my big dream, as Taghyeer was a dream 4 years ago, and I said that, you can see my videos, I have also another dream of having 100,000 Palestinians standing on the street, demanding, asking for a peaceful solution. So let's hope, and this needs a lot. We need your support, definitely. I'm so proud of Beit of Hope. Mehra and David spoke, but they didn't mention their organization, which is a great initiative by Palestinian, Jewish, Iranians who established this foundation, and they are supporting more than 11 initiatives in Israel and Palestine. So this is another subject, but thank you, Howard, for your question.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ali. This being the week before Thanksgiving for those who celebrate it, it is a great moment, I think, to just pause and recognize people doing incredible work around the world. As I look at this screen, I see so many people who are doing wonderful work. So I want to just thank you all for what you all do in the world. Ali, you've modeled that beautifully for us today. You are a truly inspirational leader. The resilience and determination and relentless love that you bring to what you do is quite exceptional. So thank you for being with us today. Wishing everybody a peaceful end to the year, and that we actually recharge our batteries as we cross into 2021, because there's so much important work to do in the world. Sending love to all of you. Ali, thank you. Team, all those who support the work, a big thank you and warmest wishes.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Leaders Quest.